Hold that. Now from there, as she's holding this posterior pelvic tilt, she's going to emphasize more of a bend from where we put the PVC pipe before. So she's going to press up, but it's not going to be a crazy range of motion. She's going to start pushing up with the arms. Start pushing up, Mariko. More, 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 more. So she's holding a posterior pelvic tilt here to prevent the lumbar from going into more of a hyperextension. And she's starting to just create more extension here. Press a little bit more, Mariko. Now, as she holds that position, what I want her to start doing is breathing into her abdominal wall. I want her to start breathing into her chest at the same time. So while you hold this position, the breath is going to be what helps facilitate the length on the front side of the body. But in order to also create expansion or to create more extension here, I want her to expand the ribs laterally in this position like so. So what I'm going to have her actually do is breathe into her T-spine as well. So that way the vertebrae can shift anteriorly. So she'll be breathing in. And as she creates that horizontal expansion here on the back end of the ribs, it should help her get that chest a little bit further forward down to the floor. So let's shift the chest down to the floor. Now you're going to push up with your arms from there, Mariko. A little bit more. Keep the breastbone opened up. So she's going to be breathing into the abdominal wall, into the chest cavity, and into this region here. So essentially we want to have a big front side and big ribs on a general basis. Go ahead and take a break. You should be able to feel a good stretch on the front side of your abdominal wall. If you don't, you may not need this directly, and you may be able to skip past this. Some people have too lengthened of abdominal walls. That's not typically something that I've found with this particular technique, but sometimes it does happen to be an issue. Mariko, what I want you to do is try and drive your hips down to the ground a little bit more. Bend at the knees, and really try seeing if you can get the hips as close to the ground as possible. Hold that position there. Now go ahead and let your feet come down to the ground. So I want your hips as well, when you do this technique, to be as stuck to the ground as possible. You can even rotate your knees out a little bit, Mariko. Hold that. So I want your hips as close to the ground as possible. In wrestling, they would call this being in they call this parterre. You want to be almost, if you're at the bottom position, you want to almost be stuck to the floor. From there, I want her to do the posterior pelvic tilt once again, keeping the hips glued to the ground. And then from there, she's going to push her chest up again. And the idea is that I want also some of the lower fibers of the abdominals to stretch with the upper portions. My biggest concern is really with the tissues on the upper portions. And so the way that we prevent that from happening, give me a little more posterior tilt, Mariko. Right there's good. Okay. Now we're going to shift the T-spine down towards the floor. Fantastic work. And again, we're breathing into the abdominal wall, into the chest cavity, and into this posterior rib cage, almost into the thoracic spine region. Just imagine the area that you don't bend in, where you were using the tool, that's where you're orienting your lever to create that extension. Okay, you want to make sure we retract the shoulders, so pin the shoulders back from there, Mariko, a little bit more. Now push from there. That's a lot better there. Now we're getting much better execution there. Breathe into the chest a bit more. Keep the posterior tilt. Push up a little bit higher if you can, and good. That is how we stretch the abdominal wall.